Is Florida State wide receiver transfer Hykeem Williams the perfect replacement for Travis Hunter? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And thank you for making me your first listen. Like I said, I'm Kevin Borba. I cover all things Colorado for Athlon Sports and for Locked On. And joining me today is Locked On Seminoles and Locked On Transfer Portal host Brian Smith. Brian, we kind of had some crossover with Hykeem in your neck of the woods because there was a possibility he'd end up in Boulder, and now he has officially ended up in Boulder. And so there's plenty of excitement around, I think, what once was, which was a high rating. He was a 5-star recruit, sort of viewed as one of the better players in the country, and that didn't quite show at Florida State. But now, do you think Colorado has the opportunity to tap into his potential and maybe help replace Travis Hunter? Because I think to replace Travis Hunter, you got to moneyball it a little bit. You got to get a few guys here and there to sort of figure things out. Do you think Hykeem Williams can be a solution to that problem?
He's a part of it. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, and he can run like a deer. Those are good traits. And he was an elite recruit for a reason. He's from Fort Lauderdale, went to Stranahan High School and Miami and Florida, and everybody recruited him, and he signed with Florida State. His biggest issue is staying on the field and being healthy. Although he looks like a Greek god, he's just always nicked up. That's the first thing that's got to get cleared. He was hurt again this spring, part of the spring practice for the Noles. If he does, like the speed and the size and all that, like his hands are like an offensive lineman's hand. Like he's got all the traits that you're looking for. Nobody's Travis. You and I were joking about that before the show, and you're right. Moneyballing it is probably the best way to look at it. There's one Trav. Okay, that's just never going to change. So if you can get a boundary receiver like this that can run like a deer, or you want to put him at flanker, you can move him around. If he takes it serious and he can stay healthy, this could be a 50-catch guy. Physically, he has every trait under the sun. It was puzzling to me why he didn't hit at Florida State, but then again, last year, Florida State, bad would be a very kind way to put Florida State last year.
Yeah, not much there. So. Yeah, and I think we talked about Travis Hunter, and before people get their underwear in a bunch, if you will, you got to replace 4 NFL wide receivers. 3 of them were drafted. The other was unsigned, Will Shepard. So you're replacing 4 NFL caliber guys. And so you have to look a lot of different places. And so there's going to be guys like Draylon Miller or Marion Miller, both of which you're familiar with, but they've also turned to the transfer portal, right? They brought in Joseph Williams from Tulsa. They brought in Smasir Brown from Campbell, who I talked about yesterday. And now Hykeem Williams is sort of in the mix with a slew of other freshman receivers as well. And he has an opportunity, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to sort of, it's like second chance for him, right? He didn't pan out, and he has the chance to prove that he was worth the ranking. Because at the end of the day, 5-star recruits, I think, get the most chances across all athletes in sports, right? They get NFL opportunities. They will get endless opportunities to play for certain teams. There's a certain tight end who we don't really need to mention him because he has nothing to do with Colorado, but he just signed with like a 7th school because he's a former 5-star, and people are still excited and hopeful that, like, hey, we could be the team that turns him around. So in terms of Hykeem Williams, what do you see his ceiling being? Right? Is he a guy who could be the team's best receiver, or is he a guy who needs Smasir Brown and Joseph Williams to sort of take on that role and he could complement them?
He could be a number 1. I mean, physically, it's off a computer screen. He is absolutely an enigma. Maybe Deion thinks he's the guy that's going to resurrect him. And for the record, most coaches think they're the guy that's going to resurrect somebody. That's exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
But if you're going to try, you might as well have all the ingredients to make the pie. 6'2", 215, and he can fly. He right now, if he showed up, like if we were at the next combine at the NFL and nobody knew who he was and he walked out there to run the 40, you'd say, I don't know who this is, but he looks the part. Like he looks like he's going to the draft now. And he's got 2 years more to play in college. Yeah. So could he end up being your number 1 next year? Wouldn't shock me, but if he's not in your top 4, it wouldn't shock me either. My guess is as good as yours.
Yeah, I'm hesitant, because honestly, Florida State transfers have not been kind to Colorado. To go through some of the names, there was Bishop Thomas, who If you watch the first season of that Amazon Prime documentary, they wanted him to be so good. They wanted him to be a guy, right? He was featured. He was getting little side interviews from the Amazon people. Like, they wanted him to work out, and he just wasn't able to put it together off the field. And then that transitioned to stuff on the field. Travis J, another name who I think was an exciting name, didn't work out. Brennan Gant, same thing. And then they also had the linebacker that committed last year, but went back, Lundy, if I'm not mistaken, where he was at Buffalo for about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden he went back to Tallahassee. So Florida State transfers have not been nice to Colorado, but we are in the business of being optimistic right now. So Brian, if you had to give Colorado fans one thing to be optimistic about and be like, okay, this guy is different from those 4 other Florida State transfers I mentioned, what would you point out aside from his physical traits? Like, what would you just say is like a reason to be optimistic?
Even when he's on the field and not catching the football, everybody knows who he is. Okay. If you do not roll coverage his way or whatever, look, like, that is a thoroughbred. Mm-hmm. He's going to catch a couple home run balls just by default.
Yeah.
That matters. Yeah. So you could see safeties lean in another direction, et cetera. And Colorado's got more receivers coming in. They got good players. He's going to get some single coverage too because of the other guys. I would expect some big plays. Now, I'm not saying consistent. Still got to prove that. Yeah. But to think that he's not going to have some big plays this next year would be foolish.
And then one final question on Hykeem. Do you think they addressed the awkward Travis Hunter comment that he made when he was a recruit? If you guys don't remember, they were talking about his pledge around signing day, and he goes, "Ain't no Travis Hunter around here," right? He was kind of poking fun at the fact that Travis Hunter flipped last minute. If you're him, do you address it? Do you wait for the media to address it? Do you just go, I was 18. I wanted to be excited about my commitment. Do you think he should address it or will have to?
Hykeem's a pretty low-key guy. I imagine the media will be the one that does. That would be my guess. But I could be wrong, but I don't think he'll bring it up.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if I'd want to bring it up because it's kind of awkward, but like, hey, at the end of the day, every 5-star is confident, right? They all are projected to be first-round picks. That's why they have that 5-star rating. That's kind of how it works. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And now Colorado fans should be supporting Hykeem in the biggest way possible. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's latest transfer portal addition on the offensive line. They're getting beefy up there. But first, a word from our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, are here. And if you're not getting in on the action, then you need to head over to FanDuel because there's major momentum shifts, can't miss moments. And then whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? That's where you could decide on FanDuel. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Don't faint, anyone. But Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes are adding transfer portal talent. I know it's a rarity these days, but they went out in the portal and brought in another top player. Now, top player could be up for interpretation, right? We may have to dive into some film here. He was viewed as one of the top remaining players. That being said, I don't know what that necessarily means, but the Buffs landed Maryland transfer Andre Roye. He's offensive tackle, 6'5", 300 pounds, looks the part. Started 7 games for the Terrapins last year, only allowed 1 sack and 434 snaps. Brian, sort of walk us through, first of all, the confusion about him and I guess just the general direction that you foresee Colorado heading in with all these offensive line additions.
I think they're just going to try to work it out, let the best man win. What is it, 7 guys they've got?
7 guys. Yeah, 7 guys.
That doesn't even count the guys they got coming back. So my guess is they're going to try players at different spots. Try right tackle, right guard, find the right combinations, whatever works. Seaton's the left tackle, and they got the big fella coming in for Memphis. Those are the only 2 spots. Like, those guys are NFL players. They can get one more road grader, like 3 of your 5 or like big time. I'm telling you, they could win the Big 12 this year. Because not many teams have offensive lines like that in the Big 12. They just don't. Yeah. So that could be the key. But which guys is it going to be? That's why you bring in Roye. Maybe he takes that step forward. And at worst, this is the thing that kills Colorado and most teams in the Big 12 every year. Somebody goes down. And then that next guy is like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
The turnstile has entered the lineup. And then it's downhill, like your quarterback's getting beaten to death. So having more depth and more competition, Deion Sanders and his staff are doing the right thing. This is how you win. You've got to build depth. I still think they need to get more high school linemen. And I don't know if they're trending that way, but if you're going to get the guys out of the portal, it's nice to get guys that have started too. And he did that.
Yeah, starting experience has been a clear point of emphasis. Like Brian mentioned, they have 7 offensive linemen coming in via the portal. Joining Roye is Larry Johnson III from Tennessee. They also brought in Xavier Hill from Memphis, who is expected to start at either one of the guard positions. They brought in Zylan Chrysler from Illinois. They brought in Zarian McGill from Louisiana Tech, who had over 30 starts, was an all-conference player there. They have Aki Oji, is what I call him because I don't want to butcher his last name, from Texas A&M. And then they also brought in who else am I missing? No, that was everyone. Excuse me. So they bring in 7 guys, right? All of them have starting experience. All of them were highly touted transfers. And I think we talked about Moneyball replacing Travis Hunter. I think they're Moneyball just building an offensive line outside of Jordan Seaton, right? You kind of offensive line is the one place where you can't be bad and expect to win games. I think, and this has kind of been a controversial take in the past few days because of where he fell in the draft, but I do think Shedeur Sanders masked so many issues that offensive line had. To get that team to 9-4 and be sacked 94 times in 2 years, I think is nothing short of a miracle. Now, if you want to debate whether his jersey should have been retired or not, that's a different discussion. But what I'm saying is Shedeur Sanders was masking those issues. And so I think Colorado is well aware of that. They want to run the ball more. They want to protect whoever's at quarterback. And Brian, you hit on it. Bringing in as many guys as possible. At the end of the day, 5 of them can start, right? Other guys are going to be depth pieces, and it's not like any of these guys can go anywhere until the next winter portal. So these guys are all here for the long haul. If you're Colorado, how do you figure out this offensive line battle? Like, walk me through the fall camp, because that's the other hard part about the spring window is fall camp is kind of like a week or so of, we're still figuring out position battles. And then it's like, okay, now we're preparing for week 1. So walk me through those steps there.
The biggest thing is the summer. Coaches aren't allowed around players, but the strength and conditioning staff is, and they run quote unquote player-led practices. O-linemen are going to work together, and they're still going to go talk to coaches like on chalkboard and stuff. I don't know what's allowed, but we all know that's crap anyway. I would imagine they're going to have an idea which kids can do something based on the chalkboard and what the strength staff says. That'll help, at least from day 1 in fall camp. Okay, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, Seaton, that's one thing. You got the big guy coming in from Memphis. That's great. But after that, it's like, well, we'll see. So they're going to try different combinations. The first couple of days, I know they're not in full pads, but they'll still either know what they're supposed to do with their assignments or don't. Those guys will move to the front of the line. And then you start with Oklahoma drill and stuff when the pads come on. It'll take care of itself in about 5 practices. They'll know. And the kids that came in out of shape, they'll be standing next to Deion. They can get photos with Deion and be happy. That's what's going to happen for them.
Yeah, get a little Instagram flick. There you go. Brian, I appreciate you hopping on. Tell the people where they can find you, because you got Florida State covered, and you are also covering the entire transfer portal, which means you are covering a little over 3,000 players. Good for you.
Yeah, the portal podcast is recruiting, NIL, and the transfer portal all in one. So I usually have a couple of shows a day, and we're getting ready. This weekend is when recruiting goes bananas. All these weekends, Auburn, Georgia, and a whole bunch of schools got a bunch of visits. Anything can happen at any time. There's a lot of commitment. So we cover national recruiting. I just did my quarterback recruiting rankings. It's a little bit of everything. Check out the portal podcast for anything recruiting, NIL, or the transfer portal. And I do cover Florida State as well, Locked On Seminoles. So I'm a busy man.
Brian's a busy man. We're busy over here at Locked On Buffs. When we come back, we're going to be talking about another one of Colorado's key transfers. Can he be a superstar, or is he just a big name? But first, a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. So you can track all your accounts, investments, investment spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. They have surprising insights. I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, trying to save for a wedding, trying to save for a house. And guess what? Maybe spending X amount of dollars on the good old DoorDash app isn't the best way to go about it. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs, covering Colorado for Locked On, Athlon Sports, and more. So make sure to follow me. That way you don't miss out on a moment of other coverage. As I teased a little bit before we got to this segment, we're talking about someone who I think could be a star, secret weapon, if you will, for the Colorado Buffaloes offense, and that's Zach Atkins. Now, there's not a lot of media coverage on guys who come from Northwest Missouri State. That being said, Zach Atkins was one of the best players in the transfer portal, was at one point ranked as the number 1 tight end. And he's done a lot of, or I think he showed a lot of, I guess, potential in the spring game, right? 6'4", 240. He's come on the show multiple times. He talked about how he finds motivation by being overlooked, right? There was programs right around the corner from him that didn't even give him an offer, didn't give him a look. And because he was a little bit of a tweener in high school, right, a wide receiver that was eventually converted to a tight end. So can he be the secret weapon on offense, right? I think Zach Atkins, for one, a year late, right? If Colorado has him last year with all the weapons they had, I think he would have really exploded and really added a new element to that passing attack. That being said, I think he's going to be the secret weapon this year, right? I think so many people focus on the wide receivers. They focus on the Sincere Browns, Joseph Williams, whoever it is, right? They want to look at the big names outside, the big fast guys who are on the boundary making these jump ball catches. And sometimes a team just needs someone who can make a catch over the middle. Sorry for the readjustment there. They need someone who can make a big catch over the middle, make something happen after the play. And I think that's where they've been lacking out of the tight end spot, right? Last year they had a combined from Savell Smalls and Sam Hart. They had a combined 10 catches for a whopping total of 67 yards and 1 touchdown, right? So they weren't getting anything out of their tight ends. They also weren't getting blocking out of them, right? They were not a good blocking crew. So Zach Atkins is a guy who could do a little bit of both, right? I think that's going to be something that helps him slide into that secret weapon role, because teams are going to be like, okay, when Colorado goes into tight end personnel 21 or 22 personnel, whatever it is, right? They want to, I guess, run the ball, right? I think it's kind of a known thing that when teams have a tight end or multiple tight ends on the field, they are kind of hinting at what play will be run, right? So if you see two tight ends tried out there on the field, you're like, okay, it's 22 personnel, probably going to run the ball. Where Zach Atkins, a little play action, a little open over the middle, make some plays after the catch, right? His one play or his one catch in the spring game, he took for 20-plus yards, stiff-armed the defender, got the first down, right? Huge play, huge connection between him and Kaidon Salter. So I think that adds a new element to the offense. I think having a big security blanket is going to be the secret weapon for Kaidon Salter, Julian Lewis, whoever's taking those snaps. What's been missing, right? Colorado has, at least in the Coach Prime era, has not had a consistent tight end who could do everything that the team needs, right? They've been missing. Last year, it was a blocking tight end who can make plays, right? They had Savell Smalls, who's a converted defensive end pass rusher that just really didn't work out on the defensive side of things. And so they switched his position to tight end, and he had the size, and I feel like the coaches were really excited about what they saw from him, but obviously that didn't translate to the field. Sam Hart, another guy who I think he was expected to be more of a blocking tight end. He only had 1 catch for -1 yards. He's a guy who, I mean, didn't play at Ohio State, didn't really do much for the Buffs here, and I think he was expected to be more of a blocking tight end, but neither of those guys were really that useful in the run game. Granted, neither was the offensive line, right? The blocking in the run game has been abysmal for Colorado for the past couple of years. And then you go back to Coach Prime's first year, right? They had a fella by the name of Mikey Harrison, who ends up at San Diego State this past year with Sean Lewis. He had a pretty good season in 2023, 31 catches for 284 yards, 5 touchdowns, right? Shador liked throwing him the ball. That being said, he was more of a tweener, 6'3", 220, not the biggest tight end. So when it comes to blocking, he just wasn't able to be what the team needed. So the outlook for Zach Atkins, I think, is a guy who should help improve the run game with his blocking, and is a guy who should help improve in the passing game and add another element to this offense, because he's a guy that's going to live in the play action game. He's a guy that's going to live over the middle, short yardage situations, be a, I guess, the safety blanket, like I mentioned, for the quarterbacks. And so I think Zach Atkins has a chance to really be one of the better tight ends of the Big 12. Do I think he's necessarily going to have 1,000 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns? Maybe not. But it's one of those things where if you are able to get more out of him than what you've gotten out of the past 2 years, that's a pretty big deal for the Colorado offense, with who's going to have a new identity come 2025. So I think Zach Atkins, has a chance to be a secret weapon for the Buffs. You guys comment below and go check out my interviews with him. He's been on the show a couple times. Really fun to talk to. Provides a lot of insight on himself, the team, and everything in between. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And don't miss out on our episodes the rest of the week. We are going to be doing an Ask the Expert series, where we ask the people who covered these players before they got to Boulder everything we want to know about them. So if you have questions about someone like Joseph Williams, Vickers from Oklahoma, Makari Vickers, that is, Martavius French from UTSA, comment them below so that way I could ask your questions for their insiders or experts, if you will. So appreciate you guys. Hope all of you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.